was truly alone and had to go make a change. I had not figured out how to be a husband or father because I didn't know how to live my own skin.
Tony is always competing against Tony. That's all just guts.
It inspires us to do something different.
I'm still trying to figure this out, and I never wanted to back down from the challenge. I'm not going to quit.
Sam, good morning from Las Vegas. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I think we both have the same Yeti mic.
Look at that. Yeah.
It's great, isn't it?
I was told how bad my interviews sound when I just use the computer, so I plugged this thing in.
Oh, it sounds perfect. Well, thank you for joining me today to talk about your documentary, Tony Hawk, Until the Wheels Fall Off. I've always wanted to be a skater, but I'm Generation X, but I've followed skaters my whole life. I've, best friends are skaters. And so this is such a wonderful documentary about, I guess he's the Michael Jordan of the skating world. Is that a good analysis of Tony Hawk?
I would say that's an apt comparison, and certainly a quick reference for mainstream audiences to understand. But yeah, he is by far the guy that every other skater looks up to, and sort of the original. So yeah.
Yes, that's the name that stops people in their tracks when you talk about skating. And, access to Tony Hawk's life, he must have just put his trust in you, because I'm sure over the years he's been approached by different filmmakers, but he decided on you. So that must have been a great honor.
Well, I asked him, and I think that we got to know each other a little bit, and he realized that I'd been around the sport forever, and that I was around him when he was a kid and skating in similar contests and at the same parks. So, I think the one thing to note though, is that he didn't decide one day, I'm going to go make a documentary about my life and pick a director. He didn't have any plans for that at all. I came to him and I sort of laid out a pitch on the kind of film I'd like to make. And I think sometimes people see these things and they think, oh, this is commissioned by the personality themselves. And Tony's not that way. Tony's mostly focused on skating. And so I sort of had to tell him, that eventually someone's going to come along and make this story on your life. So might as well do it with somebody who really understands it. And then he got on board, but it wasn't in his plans at all.
I think what I found most fascinating about the documentary is that how he handled his fame at a young age. I didn't realize that he shot to the top so quickly. I thought it was just a long, but just seeing what he was thrust into the spotlight and fame and dealing with at such a young age, the pressure must have been unbearable for him.
Well, yes and no. He definitely did feel a lot of pressure, but you have to remember the sport in the 80s was pretty small. And really the wave in the 80s of success that skateboarding had was because of Tony and the Bones Brigade team and Stacy Peralta and their videos and their contests. They sort of lifted the whole sport with their sort of unique way of marketing it. In the film, Stacy Peralta says, well, we put out our first skateboard video at the same time that 70% of homes in America got VCRs for the first time. So, but the contest back then, there'd be a couple hundred people there at most, and no one took it very seriously in terms of, no one had any marketing or brand acumen. Everyone was just so excited that people were buying their boards and they got to make a living skating for a couple of years. Now hindsight is great, but at the time it just seemed like, wow, we get to go to London, or we get to go skate a contest in Vancouver, and might as well just have fun with this while it lasts.
Yeah, and you had no shortage of skateboard stars being interviewed for the documentary. Did they? Everybody agreed, it looked like.
Yeah, I mean, when you have someone like Tony that everyone really appreciates, and they know that Tony's done so much for skateboarding, I think that obviously is a good motivator. But it's a pretty tight community, and it's a shared history. Those Bones Brigade teammates, the original teammates, Lance Mountain, Steve Cavallero, Mike McGill, Rodney Mullen, Kevin Staub, those guys they had this shared experience together that no one else had. So, so yeah, obviously they needed to be the main voices in the film other than Tony.
And also his balance between his passion for skating and being a family man and a father. I mean, what a great insight to his personal life too.
Oh, thank you.
And I love the soundtrack. You know, I'm Generation X. You know, I grew up in the early 80s, the Clash, the Sex Pistols, New Order. I mean, it just matches my memories of skating and growing up with that music. They go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, back then when you skated a contest, there was somebody that had set up a cassette tape deck and a little board and 2 speakers, and you could give your tape to the person running the board, and for your 45-second run, they would play your song, and you had to have your tape rewound to the right point, and then we all had boom boxes, yeah, obviously, so you could set your tape up, and that's how I learned a lot of the bands that I love. That's how I first heard about them, is by going to the skate park and skating to, Stiff Little Fingers or XTC or The Alarm or any of these other bands, The Clash, that we put in the film. But most of these songs were songs that were playing during the actual runs that Tony and his competitors were skating to, or they were music coming out of the boombox at the ramps that I built and skated. And when you put those 2 elements together, that audio element and the visual from those times, to me, it takes me right back there.
Absolutely. That's what it did for me. Just transported me back to 1982. I loved it. And how was the premiere? You recently had the premiere for the documentary, and Tony Hawk, he recently broke his leg, didn't he? I mean, the man's a beast.
Yeah, he had a big slam and broke his femur.
Ooh.
And was in the hospital for 3 or 4 days, got a rod put in, some pins, some screws, and he has been rehabbing at the highest level his body can take ever since, because I know that he is, not only wants to get back to skating right away, which of course he does, but he's restless. He likes to move, and he likes to keep going. And I think that, him coming to the premiere and him coming to Austin when we debuted the film at the film festival, that's just his mindset from the beginning. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to get back to a place where I feel good. And yeah, it's amazing.
His story is still being written. I can't think of any other sport, especially now it's an Olympic sport, where age is only a number, right? Everyone else in baseball, football, he just, in skating, it's more than a sport. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of life.
It is. And to call it a sport is to sort of, minimize what skateboarding actually is, which it is an expression of creativity, of art. It's a community. It is an incredibly inclusive pursuit, especially now, not back so much when we were kids, but now you go to a skate park and there's a person of every race and gender and belief, and they're all encouraging each other. And a lot of that has to do with Tony Hawk, who has been the frontline ambassador for skateboarding. It wouldn't have been in the Olympics without Tony. It wouldn't have been in the X Games. There wouldn't be parks all over the country and all over the world without his constant push for skateboarding. And that's a beautiful thing about him.
Great legacy. What an amazing legacy. And Vegas is ready to welcome Tony Hawk. His weekend jam is coming here May 12th. So we're excited about that. And, congratulations on a great documentary. Thank you for joining me today. And it premieres today on HBO Max, right?
Yes, it does.
Well,
yes, it does. 9 o'clock. So Jeffrey, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Let's talk again soon, Sam. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.